Hi everyone, I just wanted to do a quick unscripted video. I have a quick list of notes here that I just wrote in the last 10 minutes. Wanted to go over my Harvey G700 Dust Processor. I know a lot of people have seen this in shops, and I see a ton of sponsored videos from Harvey where they give these out. And I thought I would give my unbiased review because I paid full price for this. I think it was like $2,600 before freight and like $3,300 with tax about 2 years ago. So, and I paid that in full. I'm not sponsored by Harvey, so I just wanted to give my thoughts and opinions on this machine. So this is the Harvey G700, kind of known because it has that cyclone dust separation, and it does work very well. I do like the machine. It has some cons, and I think depending on if you're a small shop or a production shop, it does change whether or not this would be a good fit for your workflow. Kind of one of the standout features of this machine compared to a normal wall-mounted or taller unit like you see from Clearview, other companies, is they're very tall and they take up a lot of space. But the nice thing with this is I have this under a workbench here. Granted, it's kind of dirty, but you see that this bench is probably 40 inches tall, and I have it slid under here. So if you're in a small shop, it can be really beneficial to be able to slide this under a workbench and not have to take up all this wall space. And eventually, I will have all my finishing stuff here and other storage that would normally be taken up by the whole machine. So that low profile is very nice. Some other key standout features of this is it does have very high suction. I was pretty amazed. Before this, I had a 2 horsepower Grizzly motor, and this did blow it out of the water, or I guess suck it out of the water, as you would say. It does have a lot of power in the form factor, and which ties into it actually uses less power. I want to say that Grizzly used 14 or 15 amps at 240 volts, and this is a 240 volt machine, but only draws around 12-ish amps under high load. So if you are in a shop where you're constrained on power but have 240 volts, this might be a good fit as it doesn't use quite as much power as a lot of the larger units. It also is very low noise. I'll turn it on real fast here. And which ties into a con, it does take a while to turn up, but even though I'm talking pretty normally now, it's almost at full suck, and I could almost still have a conversation. It's probably a little bit louder than you want to have running in a shop, but compared to a lot of the bigger units that just scream, this really isn't that loud. Granted, if you take your hose off, it does get a lot more noisy, but in general, compared to everything else in the shop, it is pretty quiet compared to most units. Some other things that I do like as well, it is variable speed, though I have never used the variable speed. I think for most things, you just want full suction all the time. It does include a remote, and a 240 volt wireless remote, because I have one for my Grizzly, is about 60-70 bucks, so that's nice that they do include a little remote to turn it on and off from anywhere in the shop. And in my experience, I was working at a small 20 by 20 garage, and there's really nowhere in that garage that I felt that I didn't get a good signal, even if it was, being turned on in an awkward spot. Another nice thing about the machine is it does include, because it is heavy, I think it's about 500 pounds, it does have pretty nice wheels, and then it does have little stops that allow you to level it out on uneven floors. And it also has lifting points too, so depending on what you're doing, it is not that difficult to move around if you do it to actually lift it with a shop crane or something similar. And even though 2 of the wheels don't do 360, they're just straight on, I really found no issues moving this around. And I recently moved it across country in a U-Haul, and I really had no problems, pushing up the ramp of the U-Haul truck with an additional person helping. It is also pretty nice very easy to get to your dustbin. It's just a couple of switches, and you get access to your dustbins, which is convenient compared to some things, especially if you're used to the current ones, where if you have the steel band, kind of a pain in the butt to get those undone. It's a little hard to see here because I do have it under the table, which is also a downside, that some of the things you want access to are going to kind of be in a weird spot. But the Harvey does have really nice knobs for shaking off the filters, which does prolong the life and make it so you do have to change your filters less. And then it also has clean outs that are very easy to access, and you really can just throw your 4-inch dust hose or whatever else you have, or some people have done it different because there are 2 of them. Some people have done a ducted system where you can easily suck out both at once, which is nice compared to, again, other units where you might have a little more of a pain to clean out the filter area. The other real nice thing that this has that my old collector did not is it actually has a shutoff for when the unit is full. And because of that, as you fill up the machine, at a certain point, it realizes that it can't take any more. It has a sensor in there, and it will shut off the collection. So because of that, it is harder, I will say, which comes in my cons section. My real hate for the machine comes there. But overall, it does work very well to make sure you don't clog the machine up. Having that shut off, that automatically shuts the machine off when you reach a certain point of fullness on the bag. Alright, now that I've gotten some of all my real nice things to say about the machine out of the way, which I do still love the machine, but it has some problems, and also Harvey themselves have some problems that I won't mention all in this video, but I will do the ones that relate to this machine. So the first one is a high freight charge. With most machines, I bought, big machines from Rockler, Woodcraft, big bandsaws, my big planer from Grizzly, other machines from other companies, Oliver, every company under the sun, and their freight charges are only $100, maybe $200 even for a large machine, which I understand that might still lose them money. It probably does cost them a bit more to ship, but when you look at the Harvey and you get to the website, it's a $500 freight charge, or at least it was a couple of years ago. It might be more now than $500. But $500 is a pretty hefty freight charge for not the largest machine in the world. It does come on just one pallet. And you look at the price of the machine like, oh, $2,300 or $2,500, whatever it's marked down to on the day might not seem bad. You add to your cart, and then your price is jacked up 15-20% because of a high freight charge, which to me is a little fishy. I'd rather them include more of that in the actual price of the machine and have that freight charge be something more similar to other companies, where when I bought my Grizzly planer that weighs 1,000 pounds, it was like a $180 freight charge, and same services that everyone else uses. And that's my same experience with Powermatic, Laguna, and again other brands either that ship directly or that come through Woodcraft or Rockler, which again, when you order through them, usually it comes from the factory. So all these factories, and all these warehouses, they're all shipping at a lower price point than this. Which again, that might be Harvey, saying what it actually costs. I don't think it costs $500 to ship this to most locations, but something to consider. Another thing in the same vein as money is that Harvey has an always on sale thing, which I have seen with other, heavily Chinese companies, where their price that they have it at will never be the price you pay. I think the list price is $3,600, and it's never been that high. When I paid for it, it's $2,600. As I do this today, it's $2,300. And when I bought mine, I was looking like 2 or 3 weeks in a row to see what the price was, and every day it would go up or down $100, $200, and to me, that's just not the way you do things. It's good to, I understand having sales for Christmas time, Laguna, Jet, Powermatic, they have 10% off sales at certain times of the year, but always being 30 or 40% off is kind of insane. I'd rather than have a good price and set it at that, and then also not jump all around, because it doesn't inspire confidence in the consumer that they're getting the best price today, when even now, 2 years later, I'm guessing due to low demand, they have dropped it even further than what it was at before. My biggest gripe with the machine is clogging. They say it never clogs, and that might be true under some circumstances, but when I was in my old shop, I had a very long run of pipe, and probably about 40 feet between PVC and hose, and I think one of the problems that this machine has is that even after the shutoff shuts off, it still keeps sucking at a certain level. So if you have a lot of dust running through your piping, you still might suck up a lot of dust. And because of that, and also times that I had when the sensor didn't go off, if you aren't paying attention, and if you have a machine that makes a lot of chips, you might not. I mean, my planer, my 20-inch Grizzly, can fill this thing up in less than 10 minutes of full planing, if not less than that time. And when this thing is totally clogged, it is the biggest pain in the butt to empty out, because you have to get in there, because all the gyro separation system, you have to get in there, Tried to blow it all out. I'll get an air compressor hose and try to get it in there. And then I drilled holes actually next to the cleanouts just so I had somewhere to put a thing in, because when it's totally full of dust, the machine can't generate enough suction to suck the dust out of the cleanout ports, which is a big pain. And I probably had that happen 3 or 4 times. Granted, I haven't had it happen since I moved here, but I also am not running out of a big piping system. I'm only running out of a 20-foot hose. And I am also more considerate on what I'm doing. Related to that, kind of some of the afterthoughts I think on this machine. This machine has 2 filters, and they're kind of tucked all the way on this side. And because of the way they're oriented, they're not the easiest to replace. On my other, more tower-like units, usually it was 4 or 8 screws. You could pop a filter off, pop a new one on, and be done. With this, you need to take out like 32 screws and move pieces around. I have not yet done it. I need to do it soon because I know my suction is getting lower. But another thing that's just, you look at it, and that was when I actually first bought the machine, I saw how much of a pain it was to change the filters, and that did worry me. And I will say, I have not personally done it yet, but I fear the day I do it, because it will be annoying, to say the least, and be an hour-ish of time, where my old collectors were pretty easy, 5-10 minutes to get a filter swapped out. Another thing in the same vein of the actual bins and everything else that they have is they are very small. Under normal usage, I would say, if you're just doing a table saw or a small machine, you're fine. But I have that 5 horsepower planer, and it would fill this up in 5 or 10 minutes of planing. And when 20% of your time in an hour is spent emptying a dust bin, it is not the most entertaining thing in the world when you could be doing other things. I think this is like a 30-something gallon, maybe around that level of capacity, which is not that much. Even other models from like Laguna and that might be a 45 or a 50. And with these 2, it is kind of a pain to bend down, open it up, and then you have to manually remove these bags. Whereas with the Laguna or another system where you can potentially just unclasp it and it rolls out, might be easier for your setup to empty out, whereas these, kind of a pain to empty out. I just empty them out usually into 55-gallon trash bags, and then put them back in, and usually just like 2 of these bags fills up a 55-gallon trash bag for me. But another thing to consider, if you're doing a lot of heavy planing and that, this might not be the machine for you, because it does fill up very fast. And then circling back to earlier in the video, when I did turn it on, you noticed that it took a good 10-15 seconds to fully get up to speed. Again, to me this is not a big deal. I know my 2 horsepower unit from Grizzly, it was like 3 seconds and running full speed. But with the remote, it's very easy to get in the habit of just turn it on a couple seconds earlier, and then it just takes a little longer to slow down. So it is something to be aware of. It does take more time to turn on and off. I don't think it's that hard to incorporate that into your workflow. So overall, love and hate it. I do like this machine. I think it has a lot of things going for it. I think it does have some problems. It is still a first-generation machine, and I don't think the capacity is really solved. I know they do sell units that have more capacity, but when you get those larger units, they get a lot taller, and you start to lose some of the benefits of the low-profile machine that kind of give you your advantages. And I do understand too with the dustbins, having a small thing, you can't have big dustbins here, so not the end of the world. Everything is about compromises, and the compromise getting a low-profile small machine like this is you do have smaller dustbins. So would I buy this again? I now live in the middle of the woods, and I have not yet done this yet, but my main dust collector will actually just be another unit that I vent directly outside. That way I can just keep planing all day long and just fill up a big IBC cage full of sawdust that I can empty with a forklift, and then have the dust be going outside where it's not harmful. I am still keeping the Harvey around. It is great. I do live in the cold north, so in the wintertime it freezes, and I don't want to suck all that cold air in the shop. So I am keeping this for the wintertime, and then whenever I do epoxy and that, and other things that are not just normal wood, I am still using this just because I don't want to be getting epoxy mixed in my normal sawdust that I compost. As for people that want to buy this machine, I think, if you're a small basement shop or, not doing a lot of planing, I think this can fit your workflow. It is unfortunate that it is expensive. You know, it'd be nice if it was cheaper, you know, and be more approachable for the people that I think would be able to use this machine the most. But being so much quieter and a lot of other advantages that it has compared to the big full standing wall units, I think there is a place for this in an urban shop or a small workshop where space is at a premium. You know, if you're, and the other thing with the other collectors too is that they do shake, and you can hear. When I was in my old workshop, I had a wall-mounted motor, and you could hear it outside a lot more than you could hear this because I ran both at the same place. So I might not buy this for myself because in my new space I have a lot more square footage. I could probably get a Laguna or a Clearview or another unit and not be concerned about the vertical space and make it easier for my workflow to empty out. I won't do that because I do have this machine. It does fit where it is right now, and you have the problem of selling a secondhand unit that is not always the easiest. But I think for a lot of people it does fit well. I wish Harvey, you know, changed a couple things, you know, did less sales, kept a solid price. I think they do have a great unit here. I think there's probably some improvements they can make to make changing the filters easier in the future, whether that's more quick knobs or just a different setup for changing the filters, and then potentially maybe change or upgrade the sensor just to prevent clogs a little bit better, you know. But all very minor gripes. Again, I do love the machine. It has its problems, it has its quirks, but yeah. So that's today's video. I know this was a little bit rambly. I didn't do a prompter or anything, and this is all off the top of my head to give you my real, unbiased, unfiltered reaction. If you have any questions for me, please leave them down in the comments below. Otherwise, I will see you in the next video. See you later.